podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Forged in the fires of undersoil heating, stronger than the steel of a stadium roof, their name is uttered in anguish and ecstasy.
It's all about the football gods.
Never seen, never heard, but with ultimate power. These are the football gods. Search the football gods wherever you listen to podcasts.
Before we start this match report, we'd just like to say a few words about the tragic death of Nottingham Panthers player Adam Johnson over the weekend. No sports person should die doing the thing that they love, and our thoughts go out to Adam's family, friends, loved ones, to everybody associated with the Nottingham Panthers, and to all of those who saw the incident happen in Sheffield on Saturday evening. Hello and welcome to the 1865 match report as we look back on events at Anfield where it finished Liverpool 3, Forest 0, and a disappointing Sunday afternoon for Forest, going up to Anfield and not really laying a glove on Liverpool throughout the game up until the closing stages. And a very good Liverpool team, it has to be said. They ran out 3-0 winners with goals from Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez and Mohamed Salah. The result means that Forest now have only won one in their last 9. You can put a tough start in there as a caveat, but another away defeat to one of the top sides in the division for Forest. And as we'll go through this match report, we'll try and make sense of it and dig a little deeper into the things that went on at Anfield. So it's Stephen here, and I've got Tom with me to look back over the game. So first of all, Tom, we'll look at the Forest team news, which was, I think, a bit of a surprise when we found out that Chris Wood was injured with a hamstring problem, and Steve Cooper expects him to be out now for a couple of weeks. A big blow, and it meant that really Forest had no fit strikers to go into this game with. Taiwo was on the bench, as we'll come to talk about, but with no Wood and no Origi, it meant that Forest went into this one without a recognised striker. So it was a 3-5-2 with Turner in goal, back three of Niakate, Bolly and Murillo, Serge Aurier and Ola Aina as wing-backs, with Oru Mangala, Ibrahim Sangare and Nicolas Dominguez in the midfield, and Elanga and Gibbs White as forwards, but kind of floating, attacking midfielders. And I think the plan after Chris Wood was ruled out was just to try and get some mobility up front and stretch Liverpool that way. The bench was Odysseus Vlachodimos, Nuno Tavares, Joe Worrell, Nico Williams, Chet Kouyaté, Taiwo Awoniyi returning, Andre Santos, Harry Toffolo and Ryan Yates. So 2 changes from Luton then, Niakate for Toffolo and Aina for Wood. Tom, what was your reaction to the team news and the news that Chris Wood was ruled out of this game and is now going to be out for a couple of weeks?
Well, we was in the pub, and when the team news come out at 1:00, and we thought, oh, that's a bit strange, because obviously Chris Wood, he played the full game against Luton, I believe. Yes, he did play the full game. And I'm not thinking, why isn't he playing? Obviously, it's come across that he's had an injury in training the previous day. So I think we had go into the game, and obviously I just didn't think, from once the fans heard that, I think the belief disappeared in the stadium from the away section, and I just think Forest didn't have much belief yesterday, thinking that they can get something, because they just didn't have any focal point in the final third. And I think Elanga, there was a couple of bright spells, but ultimately he just looked a bit lost out there, and there wasn't any real cohesion up front, really. It's like Gibbs White and Elanga were quite far away from each other, and the ball never stuck. So I think, Steve Cooper, his hands were tied yesterday in terms of attacking sense, because we're just you just know he's not going to be 100% fit having the last few weeks out. So yeah, from an attacking point of view, we had nothing yesterday.
And I think Cooper did want to play a back four for this game, but the injury to Wood meant that he had to change things around and go with a more defensive formation and setup. And yeah, I think you've alluded to it there. We could have chucked Taiwo back in to get a striker up there for the whole 90 minutes, but there's a chance he could have broken down so soon after coming back. So yeah, a tough start before the game even began for Forest and for Steve Cooper. And the game played out much in the way of Forest sitting deep and trying to make life difficult for Liverpool. And Liverpool did have more of the ball. They had more of the play and were very much on the attack. It was, in a sense, Liverpool were getting in behind Forest. They had a chance with Darwin Núñez that Matt Turner saved at his near post. But it was half an hour in when the breakthrough came for Liverpool. And it was when Murillo, who I think was inspired by his run at Palace a few weeks ago, tried it again, trying to dribble through the Liverpool midfield as he carried the ball out of defence. He was dispossessed by Alexis McAllister. At this point, Liverpool were outnumbering Forest 3-2. And Darwin Núñez, his shot was parried by Turner to Diego Jota, who yet again scored against Forest. It was a simple tap-in for him. But what do you think of this goal, Tom? Is that one on Murillo?
Yeah, it's like a positive mistake, as Steve Cooper likes to say, like players like trying something and being positive with it, and ultimately just got caught in the middle of the field. And then Liverpool, with their pace with Salah, Núñez, etc., they just broke straight through us, and there was nobody in the midfield because obviously Murillo stepped up, then obviously the midfield, so they didn't get back in time in terms of either Dominguez, Mangala or Sangare. So we just got cut open, and it was just inevitable. As soon as that happened, then Liverpool are just going to pick at our defence, aren't they? And I mean, Turner made a decent initial save, but yeah, who's there? And it's Jota, isn't it, who's tapped it in on that one. Yeah. So yeah, it was. I thought Forest were, I won't say comfortable in the first half an hour, but yeah, Liverpool were they were keeping them at like arm's length as much as they can. But yeah, as soon as that happened, it was just a sense of inevitability that the second goal was ultimately going to come with how Liverpool were playing. And I mean, last year, Liverpool, by their standards, were below par. And when we played them, we really did trouble them. But now they've got Dominic Szoboszlai in the midfield and Alexis McAllister, who won the World Cup with Argentina. Salah's on decent form. Jota's decent. Núñez has had a season under his belt now. So, yeah, I think, Liverpool are back to their as best as they can be. And I think ultimately the midfield struggled yesterday. I just didn't think they got a foothold in the game. And yes, that Dominic Szoboszlai, he is some player. And when you see it in front of your own eyes, but Forest just didn't have an answer to their midfield yesterday.
And that was a key theme, wasn't it, throughout the game, that Forest struggled to hold on to the ball. Every time they had it, it was being played forward, and whether it was Gibbs White, whether it was Dominguez, whoever it was, they just couldn't hold on to it. And Liverpool were quickly regaining possession, and it was just turning into more and more pressure coming back at Forest consistently.
Yeah, and I don't think with Gibbs White, I mean, I know he played a lot of football last year, and then he went to was it the Euros or the World Cup with England, etc. So obviously he hasn't had much of a pre-season, but since he's come back, he's just making things hard for himself rather than just concentrating on the basics. He's just trying to that bit too much and try. I don't know if it's the fact that he's been pushed out wide and he's not seeing much of the ball and he's trying different things just to be that creative spark. But when you're predominantly right-footed and you've got the chance to put in a cross, then you shift it onto your left foot and that cross doesn't come in. We lost the ball and then the second goal comes. And I just think Gibbs White, he's like, he doesn't need me or anybody else to tell him that he hasn't hit the heights of last season, but he's just trying that bit too hard or that touch too many or playing the wrong pass. And I just think he's making things hard for himself. And I think that's being highlighted now with the turnover in play, i.e. yesterday, where he could have just whipped it in and he didn't. And then obviously we've lost the ball and then they've scored the second goal with Darwin Núñez.
Yeah, and it was similar to the first, wasn't it? In that it was a break after Forest had lost possession, break forward from Liverpool with Szoboszlai and Salah combining down the right-hand side. And yeah, it was Szoboszlai who got to the byline, fired it across, and Nunes had a tap in pretty much in front of goal. And yeah, 2-0 at that point. And you sort of knew really the game was getting away from Forest at this stage. And even then, after that, Liverpool was still coming forward, and Turner had to make a couple of saves from Gravenberg and Szoboszlai before the break. And yeah, the game was only going one way at this point, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty much a damage limitation exercise, and I just turned around to the people who were sitting with us, and I just thought, Forest are going to get hurt. And I think if it was a Man City or somebody like that, I think they would have, I know it was 3-0 in the end and all of that, but they would have got a third and a fourth possibly before half time. And it just turned into a training match then for Liverpool. I mean, Van Dijk and even Canate just didn't break sweat. We just didn't threaten them, didn't lay a glove on them. And you can just see that on the pitch, the belief was just dwindling bit by bit. And that transpired in the away section. And I don't want to go over the old adage of with the away tickets and this and the makeup of the away section, etc. Because if people want to get a ticket and they can get a ticket, they will go to these matches. But I think the atmosphere in the away section yesterday was the worst it's been in the last year or so. Been in the Premier League, it absolutely flat. Apart from Mulligan tie, which is obviously happens at the start of the match and start of half time. Absolutely nothing from Forest fans yesterday. And I mean, I've probably got to hold my hands up and say that I didn't really sing because there was nothing to sing about. But yeah, but I think it always has to start on the pitch. If there's like a crunching challenge or a decision or nothing off the pitch transpired onto the into the away section, and it was flat yesterday. And it's quite telling, isn't it, when there's 54,000 at Anfield and you can hear Matt Turner shout to Serge like man on or something like that, clear as a bell. You know the atmosphere isn't great. And people have been saying over the last day or so about the Anfield atmosphere, and no disrespect, but Liverpool, for the older generations, did have a rivalry with us in the 70s and 80s when we knocked them off their perch. So their fans can be forgiven for not getting up for this game kind of thing, compared to, say, if they were playing like Man United, because obviously the history with the Manchester Ship Canal and all of that. But yeah, I just think the atmosphere, home and away, I just think it's been a bit of a damp squid, really. I mean, I know we haven't played any of the big teams at home yet. No disrespect to the teams who we have played, but yeah, the atmosphere. I think collectively we've got to do more, because obviously that what has ultimately got us over the line last year with the atmosphere, and people in the media were mentioning that. But I just think it's been a bit flat this season, and I don't know whether it's complacency that we're in the Premier League and this, that, and the other. And everybody thinks we're going to be a Premier League club for the coming seasons, kind of thing. Which that's the hope, but it's not a given, is it?
No.
So yeah, yesterday the atmosphere was damn squid, really flat, and yeah, there's nothing to get us going. But like I says, it's got to be a two-way street, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, and maybe a bit of the novelty of being in the Premier League now is starting to wear off. But certainly, I still think there's a responsibility from the fans to cheer the team on and keep them going. Granted, I do understand the argument that the players on the pitch have got to give you something to cheer about as well. So let's see with Villa at home on the weekend to come, if the atmosphere does certainly return at home and it can make that difference again for Forest as the season goes on. So second half then, Forest carried more of a threat in this second period. The big chance came with a move that resulted in Morgan Gibbs-White down the right-hand side. He picks out Nicolas Dominguez in the middle of the penalty area, but he completely misses his kick and the chance goes begging. And yeah, you look at that and you think Dominguez, a player of his quality, not even connecting with the ball in that situation, it's poor, really, and he's got to get a shot on target at least.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm like being a bit too kind to him that the ball coming too quickly and he just didn't get his feet sorted. But it's one of those chances what you'd love to have at any level, wouldn't you? And especially in front of the Kop, if you put that one away, it's 2-1, and you just never know. But yeah, I think you're not going to have many chances at Liverpool, are you? And
No.
And I think once you get a chance like that, you've got to put it away. And ultimately, we didn't. And yeah, I'm not saying for any minute that if that was 2-1 and say you got another one and would deserve to get in a 2-2, I think Liverpool had a couple of more gears in them kind of thing. But yeah, it would have been nice, obviously, for Dominguez to score the Kop end. But yeah, you got to be finishing moves like that if you're going to do anything in a football match, especially at Liverpool.
Yeah. And one of the criticisms of Forest in this game is that they didn't do enough to lay a glove on Liverpool, and putting a chance like that away when it comes, that's part of that and making that the game more competitive, so to speak.
Yeah, it's annoying that once the third goal goes in, which we'll talk about it in a minute, but Forest then started to play after 84 minutes when the game's done and dusted, and it's like, well, why couldn't you... I'm not saying that anybody for any minutes lost the dressing room or this, that and the other, but you'd like to think Forest could have that intensity from the first minute rather than starting to play when you're 2-0 down, when the game's like done and dusted. And you never know, if you had that like belief from the start, you never know, you could have like somehow snatched like an early goal or something like that, and it could be a completely different game. But like we've said, once the first goal goes in, the second goal goes in, it's just a damage limitation exercise, and the game's done and dusted, isn't it? So yeah, Forest have got to start playing from the first minute rather than waiting too far into the game where the game's ultimately gone.
One of the criticisms I saw some fans talking about yesterday, about, and certainly about Cooper and Forest's approach, was that, well, I can't understand why Cooper didn't just go for it. And I'm going to come back to that and say, well, if we did go for it and play open and expansive at Liverpool and get beat 5 or 6-0, which can easily happen, those same people would then be criticising Cooper for being tactically naive or, not having a solid plan. So how does Cooper balance it between going for it a bit more and being a bit more competitive, but also taking into account that you're actually up against some really good teams here?
Yeah, and another thing is that he hasn't got the personnel to go for it. If you haven't got any attacking players, well, what do? Like, tell Worrell to play up front and go for it that way when he hasn't got that attacking instinct up front. It's like you got to like look at the bigger picture here. And yeah, like I says, when we did try and go for it last season at places, we got absolutely beaten up, didn't we? And
yeah,
like going to places like Man City and Arsenal where we've tried to like play expansive football and they just picked us off. So. And like I says, we didn't have the personnel to do it yesterday, so you can't go for it if you've got no real attacking threat after Langer and Gibbs White. So yeah, you got to have a bit of perspective and think, well, it is what it is. And like I says, he's had his hands tied yesterday when he's gone to Liverpool without a striker, and you say to any team, go for it, but you haven't got a striker. It's not going to do it. You're going to like shut up shop, aren't you, and trying to do something on the break, which we tried to do yesterday, but those 2 goals ultimately killed us.
And talking of strikers, the changes that Steve Cooper made on 70 minutes included Awani coming on for Willy Bolly. And yes, I think Taiwo, he was never going to start this game, but it was good to see him come on for the last 20 minutes. And combined with the other substitutions at this point, Yates for Dominguez and Toffolo for Aina, Forest did look a bit more competitive. And certainly just having Taiwo on the pitch made such a difference, because Alanga suddenly looked a bit sharper and a bit more in the game when he moved out to the left-hand side. And just having that presence of somebody like Taiwo through the middle definitely made a difference to the way that Forest, the shape that they had and the way that they could challenge Liverpool, if you like, and cause problems for them.
Yeah, and that's what people have been saying in the last couple of weeks. So if we had Taiwo on the pitch, etc., we could have got something against Palace, or we could have like got something against Brentford, or like a win against Brentford, or or last week against Luton. So it's nice to have him back. And yeah, it just makes a difference having that focal point in the attacking third, because we tried it last season, didn't we, with Johnson, Gibbs-White and Lingard, and ultimately that didn't happen in terms of laying a glove on teams when we tried playing without a striker. So yeah, having that focal point, and obviously Taro's that type of player who can play players in because of his physique and everything. So hopefully can get another week's worth of training in, and hopefully can start the game and hopefully give us 60 minutes next week. And that might be the boost what we needed, because obviously we have. I know Chris Wood scored 2 against Luton last week, but yeah, without having a striker, we do look a worse side for it and look very toothless.
Yeah, and I think going into a game against Villa without a recognised striker again, I'd be worried about what the outcome might be. Let's talk then about the third goal, and this one came on 77 minutes. One to forget for Matt Turner, and to a degree Harry Toffolo as well. A long throw from Forest actually started it. That was cleared by Szoboszlai upfield. It was more of it looked like a bit of a hoof, really. Just a lofted volleyed ball up the pitch in the rough direction of Mohamed Salah. And Harry Toffolo is underneath it, but Matt Turner comes racing out of his goal. I think he gives Toffolo a shout, so Toffolo leaves it, but then Turner lets the ball bounce and doesn't deal with it himself, and the ball drops to Mo Salah, and he's got the simple task of rolling it into an empty net. Not a good moment for Turner, and yeah, not a very good goal to concede either. A bit of an embarrassing one for everyone concerned.
It's an absolute calamity. It's Keystone Cops-esque, isn't it? I mean, it's just like a hopeful ball upfield, and hopefully Salah's in or around it. And inside Anfield just there, I didn't think Turner was that far out. But then you watch it on Match of the Day and you're thinking, why you come that far out? If there's a defender there, stand on the end, on the edge of your penalty area. If Toffolo misses it and Salah's onto it, you're the last line of defence. You might be able to close him down, and if it goes in, that's just finishing what we know Salah can do. But it's an absolute bloody gift, isn't it? It's just, it's like they were having a chat on the halfway line. It's like, and it comes over, and it's like they've panicked, and yeah, Turner's just got in an absolute mess. Toffolo's thinking he's going to sort it out, then he misses it, and Toff can't do anything with it, and yeah, Salah's not going to miss that. But I don't want. Well, I am going to say it. I think Matt Turner's sealed his place on the bench. I think Vlachodimos. I think it's. We've been saying it for weeks, hasn't we? When he got rather fortunate against Brentford, when he could have given away a penalty, because, like I said, that's on Wissa, that's a penalty all day long when he got into a bit of a mess. And managed to get the ball away, but obviously he's ultimately fouled Wissa, and like I said, it could have been, it might have been a sending off, but they might have, with the penalty, it's sufficient punishment. But we've been saying he's one mistake away from being dropped, and I think this is going to seal it, really. But when you've got, let's be honest, we haven't got a Jordan Smith or a standing keeper who's happy to be on the bench. We've got a goalkeeper who's given up a Champions League football at Benfica, who's obviously one of the top 2 clubs in Portugal, Greek international. He's not going to be happy sat on the bench, is he? So, yeah, I think Matt Turner, he's sealed his fate, really, and I think it's been a sense of inevitability. I don't think his performances have been really assured, have they? So, yeah, I'd be very shocked. Well, that might be too strong of a word, but yeah, I'll be very surprised if Turner does start against Villa on Sunday. And I think, yeah, Vlachodimos will make his debut, because he looked good in the international break, didn't he, for Greece? I think he saved a penalty and everything. So,
yeah, against Holland, yeah. It does feel like the right time to bring Vlachodimos in. I think after Brentford would have been a bit harsh on Turner, given the fact that he'd been solid up to that point, but I wouldn't say anything remarkable,
It's been solid without being spectacular, really, hasn't he? And
yeah.
I mean, he's been all right. Let's say he's done his job to a certain degree, but yeah, it's just these odd rickets. I don't think he's done any favours, and let's see what Blackademos is like if he does get the debut on Sunday. But yeah, the less said about the third goal, the better. But we all know it was an absolute car crash, wasn't it? And yeah, it's. I think if any blooper DVDs come out over Christmas, I think that'd be the first one on it because it's awful.
So Forest made a couple more changes with 7 minutes to go. Andre Santos came on for Oral Mangala, so I'm sure Fabrizio Romano was happy with that one. And
all the Chelsea fans who don't live in England.
Yeah, and them too. Yeah. And Nico Williams came on for Morgan Gibbs-White as well. Now, a little bit of a flurry from Forest towards the end of the game. Anthony Elanga hitting the crossbar with a volley at the back post. Very Radi Majewski-like against West Brom. The technique and the way he struck it was so similar. It was good play between Aurier and Yates down the right-hand side. Yates puts the ball in and Elanga takes it left-footed first time and it crashes off the crossbar and away to safety. And that was really it as far as Forest were concerned in the game. And Liverpool didn't do a great deal after that. And it was a 3-0 finish in the end. And yes, another disappointing away defeat for Forest. And we talked about, how they really struggled to lay a glove on Liverpool during this game. A few little promising moments and a few moments to forget as well. So I think for us, it's on to Aston Villa next weekend. Let's now hear the opposition view on the game, and it's over to Neil from the Anfield Wrap.
So Liverpool comfortable against Nottingham Forest, Rich, and everyone on the podcast there. It was straightforward for Liverpool. Thought it from the outset, but we'll do that to a lot of sides this season. I think Liverpool look very, very impressive indeed. A number of good performances. McAllister, Szoboszlai in midfield, running the show for us. I think the manager, the Nottingham Forest manager, is slightly undermined by virtue of the fact that he can't pick a focal point attacker. Ioniwi, I thought when he came on, you could see why he hadn't started. He looked like he was struggling with the pace of it all a little bit, and we saw how dangerous he could be last season. I like Wood as a player as well, and he's not in the squad even, so I think that if he'd have had a focal point, it could have been a little bit different. As it was, the 5-3-2 sort of collapsed in on itself a little bit as the game wore on, I thought, from a Forest point of view. And then it was difficult to, therefore, just get any relief for the defenders. A lot of those defenders, I thought Murillo played well. I thought Dominguez played well as well whilst he was on. Gets a yellow card, but I think it's a very professional yellow card sort of foul in there, and he could see it coming. I think that I always think Gibbs-White looks like a player at every opportunity, but not having a way to build any sort of consistent pressure on Liverpool made it easy, therefore, for Liverpool to step up and step up and step up. I think that over the course of the campaign, from a Forest point of view, you may well look back on this as this is sort of what Liverpool have done. I think we've been underrated in the mainstream sort of media so far, and I think that also we've got a number of players who are coming to the party in a big way. I thought Van Dijk was excellent again, which puts it back-to-back home games against Everton and Forest, where I thought he was one of the best three Liverpool players on the pitch in there. I've mentioned McAllister as well, and that's probably his best game for Liverpool so far in that holding role. Thought he did very, very well indeed. And then up front, we've just got so many good attacking talents. Gakpo gets the clear goal disallowed. I couldn't believe the line didn't put his flag up. And I thought the Nottingham Forest players' response was really, really funny to the ridiculousness of it all. But I also, in there, thought that, you get to see Salah obviously scores, the one where the goalkeeper gets into a mix-up. But Nunez and Jota also score. And I've always said, if you've got the best goalkeeper, which I think we do have, and you've also got the best attackers, which I think we have, you're always in with a shout. And I think early in the season, we were underrated in terms of what we could or couldn't be capable of by a lot of people who are in the mainstream of talking about football in this country. But we'll see. They could be right and I could be wrong in the long run. But as it is, I think that Liverpool looked good. I'm full of beans about what we can do this season. But as far as Nottingham Forest are concerned, I think you're in absolutely no danger of ending up in a relegation battle, in absolutely no danger of, ending up sort of dragged into something. And I think that the ambition should be to finish as high up the table as possible. 11th or 12th feels plausible. Maybe pin yourselves against Wolves and see if you can finish ahead of Wolves, be the best of the rest and go from there.
This fall, stream your favorites and discover more with Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus together. Watch the highly anticipated new season of Loki and see the ghosts materialize in Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus. Catch more frights with The Boogeyman and American Horror Story Delicate on Hulu. And on ESPN Plus, get into the action with college football and NFL. All of these and more streaming now. Get the Disney Bundle with plans starting at $9.99 a month. Plans with ESPN Plus starting at $14.99 a month. Terms apply. See DisneyBundle.com for details.
For the 23-24 season, 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast is sponsored by Green King Sports, where football is more than a game. Green King Sports venues are showing every televised Forest fixture over the course of the season. So, instead of turning to the internet for a dodgy stream, get your mates together and get down to your local Green King pub and get closer to the action. They have just launched the Green King Sports Instagram page, which will be home to fan content, deals and competitions throughout the season. They've already given away Champions League final tickets and signed shirts, so you don't want to miss out. Drop them a follow on Instagram and you won't just be the first to know about all of this, you'll be supporting us here at 1865.
The 1865 Match Report.
Thanks, Neil, for the opposition view there. Now, this result leaves Forest 16th in the table. They are 5 points clear of the relegation zone and 3 points away from Brentford in 10th place. There's been some, I think, discontent on social media. Some people, a minority, I would say, starting to be very critical of Steve Cooper, but there's plenty of fans still fully Cooper in and fully on side with the manager. And I do think there's a bit of a hangover from the disappointment of the Luton game and the way that Forest threw that one away. And I think that's still having an effect on the mood for some fans, because I think you can't judge a manager on a game away at Liverpool when he's got key injuries and no striker to choose from. Yeah, I think that's quite an unfair criticism and a difficult task for any manager in that situation. So let's move on and look towards next weekend and Aston Villa at home. Now, Villa are absolutely flying at the moment. They are 5th in the table and looking good under Unai Emery again this season. But Tom, Forest at home, we've not lost at home this season. The City Ground has remained a fortress, even though there's been a few perhaps underwhelming results so far against the promoted teams. But you've got a big side with respect coming to the City Ground this weekend. Aston Villa, what are you expecting from Forest? A reaction and perhaps a good performance off the back of what's happened?
Yeah, I think we're going to get a reaction. It's the first time we've got a side with significant history, significant backing, and they're pretty local as well from the West Midlands. I think the atmosphere is going to be a lot better on Sunday. If Taiwo starts, the belief cranks up, doesn't it? Because you think we've got a striker, we've got somebody who knows where the net is, etc. So, and the same thing happened last year, didn't it, against Villa? I know, albeit it was against a poor Villa side with Slippy G at the wheel kind of thing, and he didn't last much longer after a 1-1 draw at the City Ground after Emmanuel Dennis scored. So, I just think it might be a turning point in. I'm not sure. Do they play in Europe this week? Or I know they played in Europe last week. They played Alkmaar, didn't they? So,
yeah, they're not playing in Europe again until after the Forest game. So no, they've not got a game this week now.
Yeah, because I thought they might have played, because obviously it's been moved to the Sunday. But yeah, I'm expecting a reaction from Forest. I mean, it's been a bit of like a dull couple of weeks in terms of results and performances, etc. So if Taiwo's playing and obviously and with a raucous City Ground, hopefully, I think we'll get a positive result. I'm not saying it's going to be easy by any stretch, but I think everybody will be looking for a reaction, and we've got a full week, haven't we? There's no midweek game, so I'm looking forward to it, and we'll go again. But I think after the Luton game, Steve Cooper admitted his mistakes and everything, and I think he knows he messed up, kind of thing. Then, secondly, if we get a Awani starting and get him like through training this week, I think the belief will be hopefully return and we can have a much better result.
Yeah, there'll be a few decisions for Cooper to make as well in this game, whether to start Awani and see how he's feeling after another week of recovery and training, and also the goalkeeper situation now and the calls for Vlachodimos to come in. And we're both, I think, kind of on the side of seeing that happen now and Matt Turner dropping out. So that'll be a big call for Steve Cooper to make, but perhaps not so much of a difficult one as it might have been a few weeks ago. It feels like the right time for that one, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's like had a bit of faith in Matt Turner after what happened at Brentford, etc. And I think what happened yesterday, I think that will like ultimately be proven right that Vlachodimos will come in, because obviously it's on the back. I mean, it's not nice for anybody to make a mistake, etc. And it's not nice to lose your place because of a high-profile mistake. But I think it'd be justified, to be honest, by Steve Cooper to include Vlachodimos in, because it's just, I think it's just been a sense of inevitability in the last couple of weeks with Matt Turner. I mean, he's been when he comes across on camera or whatever, he does come across as a decent person, etc. But I just think just take him out the firing line and just then put Vlachodimos in and see how he. But I think, to be honest, I think Matt Turner will be naive to think he's going to be harshly done by if Vlachodimos does start. So you can't have any complaints. I mean, if I was in goal yesterday and then I don't play in the next game because of that high-profile mistake, I'll be like, I haven't got anything answers, and you just like strive to do better in training and wait for your opportunity and make sure you grasp it with both hands. Pardon the pun if you're a keeper.
And I think it's a decision that Cooper will have to make as well as many others, but I'm sure Cooper as well will be keen to get the players on the training ground this week and preparing for Villa and putting the last couple of games behind them. So yes, Forest back at home this weekend with a big match to come, and I'm sure come Sunday afternoon we'll all be looking forward to it, and the atmosphere at the City Ground will be a little bit more familiar and what we've become used to in the Premier League. So we'll leave the match report there. Thank you, Tom, and thank you to Neil from the Anfield Wrap for providing us with an opposition view on the game. We will be back with you with our match report after the Villa game. So until then, thank you for listening and see you next time.
Sports Social Podcast Network.